about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Monday. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I'm Nicole Everett, your host. And this is a special edition of Conversations with Nicole. April is Fair Housing Month. And the city of Tallahassee, along with a few other partners, are going to be celebrating Fair Housing Month. Actually, this is part of the celebration by bringing some awareness to the Tallahassee community around fair housing and the act, as well as the issues related to fair housing. And so today's special guest is Mr. Darren Dante Bonner of the Florida Commission of Human Relations. He joined me last year as we talked around everything fair housing. So we'll do that again this year for those of you who may have missed that, as well as for those of you who might need a refresher on what that's all about. But before I bring Dante on, I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? Let us know in the comments. Put your city and state so we can give you a shout out. Again, I know this is a special broadcast, not my normal time. I will be on later on today, but right now, we are talking about the Fair Housing Act, Fair Housing 2024. And actually, the theme for this year is the Act in Action. So, tag a friend, tag a neighbor, tag a coworker, tag somebody that's interested in getting housing and let them know they need to be on here. Again, Dante is with the Florida Commission on Human Relations. So, we will be talking about all things Florida fair housing, but there are some national implications to this conversation as well. All right, so I see a few of you on, but nobody's coming right now, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and share Dante's bio. Darren Dante Bonner is a graduate of Florida A&M University's prestigious School of Business and Industry with a BS degree in Business Administration. He has over 25 years of experience in the field of civil rights and employment law, has served with the Florida Commission on Human Relations in various capacities. But during his, I think he said almost 27-year career, which he told me that recently, customer service representative, mediator, investigator, customer service intake manager. He currently serves as the educational outreach and training coordinator for the agency and is responsible for providing educational outreach for the citizens of Florida and organizations within the state, as well as facilitating external and internal trainings. He's worked with local, state, national, and international organizations in conferences, workshops, and events to increase the awareness of civil rights and the audience responsibility in their actions. Mr. Bonner is committed to ensuring that all citizens and employees receive the highest level of knowledge and information to be effective and impactful within their community. His philosophy is that all people, regardless of gender, ethnicity, age, or belief, should have the right to live peacefully amongst all individuals and to enjoy life to the utmost without being subjected to discrimination. Y'all, help me welcome Mr. Dante Bonner. Hey, Dante.
With Nicole. Hey, 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 it's National Fair Housing Month. You got to celebrate. And what better way to have a
Uh-huh.
conversation with Miss Nicole? Thank you so much for having me back. I enjoyed our conversation from last year, and I thank you for the opportunity to come back and let's do it again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So appreciate you being here. We have a few folks that have joined us. Miss Brittany, thank you for joining us. And Arthuress, SWD, appreciate you being here. So listen, y'all, your questions, your comments are welcome. Again, we're talking all things fair housing. Again, April is Fair Housing Month. And the actual act was signed on April 11th, I
Hmm.
believe.
April
Yeah,
11th.
April 11th, 1968, which was 7 days after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is pretty significant. And so, Dante, I'm not going to steal your thunder, but
Uh, this is-
tell us all about the Fair Housing Act, what it covers, who it's for, and, why should it matter to us?
well, first of all, we're having a conversation. That's why you can never steal our thunder. But the Fair Housing Act was established on April 11th, 1968, as you previously mentioned. One of the most significant things about that was this was 7 days after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, which was April 4th of 1968. And one of the things that was interesting about the act is while most people thought that as a result of his assassination, they just came up with this legislation and 7 days later it was passed, it had actually already had been in our Congress 2 years prior trying to get through. But unfortunately, it took the sacrifice of Dr. King to finally awaken the legislatures and the people saying, look, we cannot stop this any longer and we need to move this bill forward. So 7 days later, under the signature of President Lyndon B. Johnson, the Fair Housing Act was enacted. And this has been an evolving. We're going to be celebrating 56 years. When the act was initially created, it only covered race, color, religion, and national origin. But over a period of time, we did add sex, we did add familial status, we did add disability, we did add all those other particular factors that now make Fair Housing Act the law of the land. And the interesting thing is, it does apply to every single person. So it's not just about can I buy a home? It's not about what can I rent. It's also buying property. It's also the mechanism of trying to get a home. So that's real estate agents, that's brokers, that's also the banks themselves trying to lend the money to you. That's also discriminating whether or not I can live next to the river, next to the coast, or in any particular area. So if you think that fair housing doesn't affect you because you're not buying a house, I'm here to say that that is not the case.
All right, very good. So those protected classes are quite important. Did you, I'm sure you mentioned this, but familiar status?
Yes, I did. Familiar status. And the definition of familiar status is individuals who have children under the age of 18. And it's important to make that distinction because right now we're living in a multi-generational society where we are taking care of our older loved ones, whether it's your parents, your grandparents, and the law does not cover that type of familial status. It's only making reference to those of you who have children. Now, the interesting thing about the Fair Housing Act, unfortunately, age is not a protected class.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an exemption for that because, especially here in the state of Florida, there are 55 plus communities or housing for persons over the age of 62 where they can legally say, hey, if you're not 55 or 62, you can live here. Otherwise, if you're not that age, you cannot live here. So that's kind of the uh, if you will, repercussion, if you not repercussion, but basically as a result of age not being protected class, that was their way to have their protection. And as I was doing, I just finished a training course for some new employees. And I said, if you ever been to any of the 55 plus communities or their houses are amazing. I
Mm.
mean, the size and the space, I think that should be the normal space for most houses without having to pay extra. But that's just my Danteology soapbox, if you will. So
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. All right. So there are again, so familiar status, he said, those residents under the age of 18, which also includes pregnant women.
Yes, exactly. So that is that little bambino that's inside, that's coming alive into this world. It is still under that protected class as well.
Okay, very good. So, what are some of the things that you are seeing currently as it relates to the Fair Housing Act? You know, I know you all do investigations and people submit complaints or what have you with your office, but what are some of the things that are kind of more prevalent in 2024?
Well, with our agency, the Florida Commission on Relations, we are a state agency that partners with HUD, which is the Housing, Urban, and Development. So that is the federal component. So our state law, which is Chapter 760, mirrors the Fair Housing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in saying that, I wanted to say that what we are dealing with, not just here in Florida, but nationwide, is complaints of disability. People will be surprised to know that disability is the number one basis that is filed here and across the country, almost at a 2-to-1 margin, race being number two. And so a lot of people are very surprised about that. And when we're talking about disability, we're looking from their lens of reasonable accommodations, basically stating that because of my disability, I need an assistance. I need some type of accommodation to help me enjoy being able to live in this particular apartment or this home or something along those lines. And that also even covers the emotional support animal. As everyone knows, within the last 5 years, particularly with COVID coming aboard, mental health has really been a challenge amongst our individuals across the community, and
Mm-hmm.
where disability has been calling for the need for emotional support animals. However, I want to highlight and stress the fact that emotional support animals only cover fair housing laws. It does not extend to any other aspect, not public accommodations or employment opportunities. It's only for fair housing. So we're seeing a lot of cases basically saying that their landlord is not allowing them to stay there because they're emotional support animals, and there are provisions for that.
Okay, so this also brings up an issue around emotional support animal versus a service animal. Is there a distinction there? And is there, if there's a distinction, what is that?
First of all, there is a distinction. The first distinction is the fact that unlike emotional support animals can only be two animals, and this is in the statute. It can only be a dog or a miniature horse. So
Hmm.
yes, baby Mr. A. Emotional support animals can actually be any animal. When we say any animal, that means not just dog, cat, bird. We're talking about raccoon, talking about alligator, we're talking about a parrot, we're talking about a pig, we're talking about a python, any animal. Now, with that said, when we're talking about emotional support animals, you have to have your medical doctor affirm the fact that you have a need for that animal. So I know a lot of persons are trying to go online, trying to get these certificates and saying, yes, I have an emotional support animal. And that is actually illegal. And the law has really been cracking down on that. And as a matter of fact, in 2020, the Florida legislature really laid down guidelines for not only landlords, but other housing providers to affirm that if a person is actually alleging emotional support animal, you need medical documentation from the person that's actually treating your medical condition. So when we talk about a medical condition, we're talking about any major life activity that is affected by that medical condition. And if you have your doctor affirm that I need Fifi the snake to be with me to help my anxiety, then that would be covered. Now, unless there is a medical documentation saying that from the treating physician, not some doctor that you just found online, or if you have an esthetician that always treats your skin, but you have a heart condition, you want your esthetician to sign off on, that's not going to work either. You have to have someone, if you have a heart condition, the doctor that's treating your heart condition can affirm the fact that you have a need for an emotional support animal for that particular situation. And it's always going to be a case by case scenario. So it's not going to be across the board.
Ooh, okay. Thank you for that clarity. Author said a python, an alligator. Oh my, yes.
Listen,
You author.
I
That's
have a presentation that's coming up in Tampa. I'm speaking at the Tampa Bay Housing Symposium, and I have this little short video, and you can actually go on YouTube with CBS News, where there is a gentleman that actually he suffered with depression with the loss of many deaths in his family,
uh,
and actually was able to get a pet alligator. Interestingly enough, it was found in Disney World in Orlando, Florida, but for some reason, this alligator did not bite. And so, because there is a law, they just can't take a caught alligator and put out in the wild. He basically took it as his own. Here's another thing I want to highlight about emotional support animals.
okay.
True emotional support animals are not considered pets. They
Hmm.
are considered an accommodation, an extension of you. So just like somebody's not going to come up to a young woman and just pet up, oh, that's so pretty. You're not petting a woman on the head. You're not supposed to pet any emotional support animal. Service animal is included, but you don't pet them because they're not considered to be pets. And that's where the misunderstanding comes into play because a lot of individuals are interchanging those words. So it's
Hmm.
service animal and emotional support animals, and they are not the same.
Hmm.
Emotional support animals is not covered under the ADA. That's what people need to understand. So if you are using the term, oh, this is my emotional support animal, then you can legally be asked to leave or ask that animal to refrain because emotional support animals do not apply outside of their housing.
Okay, y'all heard that. I hope you got that. Whew. All right. So I want to dive a little deeper from the standpoint of really trying to prove that there's a fair housing issue because and Arthur said got it. All right. Yes. Because I think sometimes we may either not know what the laws are related to a fair housing issue, or and when I say we don't know it, like maybe we think something is a fair housing issue and it's not, or maybe we just kind of think things are the way that they are and it's really a fair housing issue.
I think one of the things is real talk. We've been jaded.
Mm,
The community has been jaded because there's been a sense of people can just do what they want to do, say what they want to say, and get away.
yeah.
And people have felt very powerless to be able to do something about it. Part of
Hmm.
it is the fact because they don't know who to go to, and
Right.
that's where our agency comes in. What is that? And the question is, what does fair housing discrimination look like? For example, if you as a young woman are coming in and you're trying to get an apartment and the gentleman is trying to hit on you. And let's say, hey, I know the deposit is, 1 month's rent, which might be $1,500, but I'd be willing to cut that in half, or better yet, you sleep with me, I'll even waive that and put you at the top of the list. That
Mm,
is a form of housing discrimination. Okay, let's take it from I'm already in the place. Well, so let's say you're the maintenance man and an individual is trying to get something fixed, and it's normally, hey, I put my name on the list. 3 days later, it gets taken care of. However, um, if you sleep with me, not only I'll take care of it right now, or because I don't want to sleep with you, now all of a sudden, instead of taking 3 days, it takes 3 months. And
mm,
you've served everyone else. That's discrimination. Okay, let's take it another example. We know that everyone is trying to get in a house. And Nicole, with her beautiful voice, calls and says, hey, I'm interested in to have a place. Because she looked online, Zillow and Google said it was available. And I'm sorry, it's not available. We just sold it.
mm,
Like, okay, but I looked online. And so Nicole, hey, Dante, can you do me a favor? Can you call this number and see if they have any places available? Yeah, sure, I got you. I call, hey, good afternoon. I saw you have a 3 bedroom, 2 bath place available. I was wondering if I could take a look at it. Oh, sure, no problem. Yeah, well, I would love to have you. When can you come down? Well, that could be an aspect of discrimination based upon gender because I being male sounded like, hey, I want him there.
mm,
Nicole being a female, that's not there. So when you don't know certain things, a lot of us, you can call it that gut feeling, that spidey senses, or you just don't feel like it's wrong. It's nothing wrong with filing complaint and saying, look, I think something is amiss here and it
Right.
needs to be checked here. And the thing about it is there is no cost to
Mm,
having an investigation now. I use this phrase all the time, and it goes without saying, you don't know what you don't know.
right.
And you have a right to ensure that my rights are being protected. And when you file a complaint, the company or the housing provider has to give a legitimate, non-discriminatory reason for
Mm,
why they did what they did. They just can't say just because I felt, because the law does govern that to be the case. And
yeah.
if they provide a substantial answer that shows that the reason why they did what they did was not because of your protected class, then they're in violation of a fair housing law.
Right.
So again, there's a lot of little small different things, and sometimes you really don't know. I'll give one other quick example.
Okay.
Uh, for real estate, individuals, if you feel like someone is steering you, which means that I want to live on this particular side of town, so I'm asking you this, hey, I have a set price, I want to look in this particular area. Well, you got a family, and I think it would be great. You probably want to live in areas that have children to play with. you
Mm,
know that is a form of steering, even though it appears that they are being helpful. If it's not what you're wanting, and they're trying to affirmatively direct you, that could be an aspect of discrimination.
mhm.
Again, it is all about, I have the right to live wherever I live, provided I got the money, as long as my protected class is not a factor in it. And it's not a matter of, is this fair, is this ethical, or is this moral? The unfortunate thing is that I say this all the time, emotions and facts always are going to go in between. When you've been hurt, when you have been told you can't live here, you're being evicted, it's going to be a painful thing. However,
Mhm.
if facts say, unfortunately, it had nothing to do with your protected class, it could be that the manager was just sorry. It could be the fact that they just mishandled paperwork. But
Right.
did they do it because of who you were? And that's the part that until an investigation is done, we're
Mm,
not going to resolve.
okay. No, again, great points. Thank you for sharing because I think, again, a lot of times, as you have said, we don't know what we don't know. And while we may just think, oh, that person is being, a jerk, really they violated, your fair housing right. Another thing that you and I have talked about most recently, of course, since it is Fair Housing Month, is affordable housing, right?
Uh,
Yes, yes. And with affordable housing, a lot of times people may think because the cost of housing has gone up, that it's a fair housing issue. And that is not necessarily the case. It could be. I mean, it could be that maybe somebody, the landlord or the property manager, is charging a different amount of rent with all things being equal, for a particular applicant, right? Which would be maybe
exactly.
some grounds for a complaint potentially. But when it's across the board, right? As Dante has told me, then there's not a fair housing issue, right?
And that also goes to, like if they're charging a one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedrooms, they're charging different prices. Yes, because of the size of the place, that is important.
Mm,
Also, I was posed this question. I get what the individual was saying, but they were talking about, well, because in certain sides of town, let's say there are more minorities, let's say, and they want to charge, was for who the housing provider, they want to charge the same amount of
mhm,
money as from another side of town. They know good and well that the people in this side of town can't afford that. So that's discriminatory because they're putting that in the place. And I had to correct the individual, say, no, if they're charging that, then as long as that's to everybody, it doesn't matter what location the house is. What is going to
right.
affect supply and demand is the fact of, if I have 10 units and if I charge $1,500, I'm just giving a very simple example. If nobody is applying for my place at $1,500, that landlord is going to say, hey, I might need to lower it because nobody's trying to apply. So they will lower it until enough people say, okay, yes, I'm going to do that.
Right.
But the challenge with that is everybody has to live somewhere. That's why you have those that have housing, whether it's your own, whether you're sharing with a roommate or with a family, and
Mm,
then that's why you have the homelessness crisis because those do not make enough money. And homelessness, housing, and fair, equitable wages they do run hand in hand because if I'm charging $1,500 a month, but I'm only making $12 an hour, even though I am working, I don't have the money for it.
mm,
That's the reason why with Fair Housing Month, there are programs, there are organizations to help identify those things that you can possibly do to help assist you into living in a safe, clean, affordable environment. And I gotta say this because this is a very personal issue.
mm-hmm,
The word affordable housing has been hijacked by the word dilapidated, project. That
mm,
does not mean affordable housing means I, as a working person, cannot afford to live in a particular place or afford to pay for something because I don't have the money. It does not mean negative. And it's only been within the last year or two there's actually been a shift talking about when you say affordable housing, everyone has this, oh, it's talking about the lower income. Let's talk about the dilapidated. Let's talk about the down and out. And I want to have you know that affordable housing is not that. Affordable housing is how can I best provide for not only myself, but my family to have a safe place to live.
agree. Also, from a financial standpoint, affordable looks at only a third of your gross monthly income going towards your housing payments. So, for easy math, just say your income monthly was $1,000. 300 of that would go towards your housing. If it goes above, again, about 30%, then you would be called house burden, meaning that you are paying so much for your housing that you don't have enough money to pay for your other expenses, like your utilities, like healthcare, like food, like clothing, like transportation or childcare. So you want to, when we talk affordable housing, it's that it is affordable to you. It's
You.
affordable to you, right? Which is going to look different than what's affordable to somebody else. Okay.
Exactly, exactly.
All
And
right.
we recognize that formula we know is challenging. I mean, or unrealistic because when that formula was made, it was at a different time. So you do have to make decisions that's best for you to find what's going to be out there, which is why these programs and these events that we're going to be doing for this month is really highlight that. Fair housing is all year round. So, but in this month of April, is we want to shine a light to
Yes.
say, hey, there are programs there because you may find out that if you participate in this particular program, there's a grant available. There's a down payment assistance for you.
Mm,
There's a program that you don't have to pay that money back. You know
right.
what? If you take 6 months and improve your credit, you can actually qualify for this. And so it's the information that we're trying to say that hey, there might be some places that are affordable that you may not have thought were affordable or in your reach.
Indeed. So we are about halfway through our conversation, and I want to take a moment for those of you are just joining us. I'm on with Dante Bonner, who's with the Florida Commission on Human Relations. He's got his polo Florida Commission shirt on. He's got the Florida Commission logo in the background. I love it. He is on brand tonight. Okay. And we are talking all things fair housing. April is Fair Housing Month. The 2024 theme for Fair Housing Month is the Act in Action, which we previously talked about the Fair Housing Act. But there are events that are coming up in the city of Tallahassee. So Dante, can you talk about the two events, the Spring Home Expo, which is taking place, as well as the Fair Housing conference that is taking place?
Yes, well, the Florida Commission on Relations, we are excited to join our Big Bend partners, the City of Tallahassee, Leon County, Big Bend Habitat for Humanity, the CCEDU, all the different housing providers that assist the Tallahassee Realtors, Tallahassee Lenders Consortium. We partner every year to throw events to help empower the people. And one of those events will be coming up this Saturday. Um, April 13th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. The Leon County Spring Home Expo. That's going to be at the Leon County Extension located on Paul Russell Road. That's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And there's going to be different lenders. There's going to be different seminars to empower and educate you on what you need to do if you're not there to get you there to be able to buy a home. And so that's on this coming Saturday. We just want to encourage all participants to come check out the information. The
Yeah.
information, you have professionals that has been in this field for an extensive period of time, and they're willing to give you that information. But you got to come out there to get that information. And
Mm-hmm.
then on Tuesday, April 23rd, that's when we have our big fair housing conference. All of the industries that all of the places and persons that I just make mention, we all come together and we're going to be at the Parkview room at Cascade Park, and we're from 9 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we're going to have various different speakers talking about various different aspects of fair housing. You're going to have the realtors; they're going to be there to give their perspective talking about property management, talking about real estate, and of course that big thing, appraisals. So you don't want to miss that information. That's going to be a very empowering session. And I do know in the weeks to come, we're going to have different individuals kind of speak more to that. You're going to also talk about, fair housing one-on-one, some of the myths, some of the things as far if you do feel like a complaint's been filed, how to file a complaint, and other different aspects of fair housing. So
Indeed.
we are really encouraging the city to come out and be supportive, but it's about you. It's not about us. It's about we have the information. Somebody's giving you some free information. You just got to come and just come and collect.
That's it. That's it. That's it. So, again, you definitely want to come out to that Spring Home Expo, which is taking place this Saturday. There'll be workshops, do it yourself demonstrations, giveaways. You can go to leoncountyfl.gov for more information. leoncountyfl.gov /home expo. And again, it's absolutely free from 9 a.m. to noon, and anybody that is either interested in home ownership or has a home but may want to brush up on some of those things that they can do to make their home sustainable or become more disaster friendly, and to find out about fair housing, because you're going to be there, right, Dante?
Yes, I'll be there.
All right. So Dante will be there with all of the fair housing information. So again, it's free. You don't want to miss it. This coming Saturday, April 13th from 9 a.m. to noon at the Leon County Cooperative Extension Office, 615 Paul Russell Road. All right. So Dante, so say I have a complaint. What do a fair housing complaint? Where do I go? What do I do?
Well, one, you can go to our agency's website, which is
Hmm.
www.fchr.myflorida.com. When you
Okay.
go to our website, our webpage comes up and it gets you to how to file a complaint. And you're going to highlight housing. And so there's a questionnaire form that we have that we need to fill out to get all basic information, your name, your address. Who are you filing the complaint against? What actually happened? Once we get that information, then it's sent to us. Our intake specialist, very knowledgeable, they're going to go through, make sure that every I's been dotted, every T's been crossed. And once we get that information, then we contact you to have you to sign a form to basically affirm the fact that yes, these are information is true and correct. And we're going to get you to sign it. So that way we can start the process of investigating your complaint. We're then going to notify the party saying, hey, a complaint has been filed against you. So we need some information from you. And also, it could be against more than one entity. It could be not only the apartment, but the owner of the apartment complex. It possibly could be with the property manager. So within fair housing, it could be multiple entities that actually will have the complaint against them. And so the investigator is going to contact you. It's going to interview. It's going to request documentation. It's going to request documentation from the party. it's going to get all the pertinent information to make a decision on whether or not were you discriminately treated because of your alleged protected class, or
Mm.
was there other particular reason. Once that information is gathered, an final investigative report is written up, and then we actually let the parties know, based upon the evidence that has been gathered, there is a determination of cause to believe that discrimination took place, or no cause to believe that discrimination took place. And you'll get a report to explain why that was the case.
All right. So there is a process, and there's an investigation that takes place, right?
Oh, yes. Our investigations, we try to take place within 100 days.
Okay. All right. All right. And so if there are no findings, then you all will notify the applicant.
Yes, we notify the applicant. And the thing about it is, even if our investigation does not find something, you have the possibility of appealing that decision.
Okay.
So even if it doesn't just say, well, my hands up, oh well. There is always the possibility that something was overlooked. There's always a possibility that maybe you have some information that wasn't submitted. So you can appeal that particular decision.
Okay.
Or if it is found in your favor, then you have the opportunity to one try to settle with the parties, which is called a conciliation, basically to try to see, well, how can we resolve this issue without having to go to court? Or if you want to take it to court, you can do so. You can take it to federal court or state court. Now, our agency is not involved with that. You would have to seek an attorney,
Gotcha.
have an investigation basically saying, hey, there was sufficient evidence to say that cause was taking place. And I would say most of the time, most housing providers, if a cause was taking place, they're going to want to settle
Mm.
before taking the case. It's much easier to settle a case before having to go to court. Now you got to pay more attorney's fees. Now it used to be $10,000. Now I'm in court. I'm gonna be $100,000. I'm just kind of give an example
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm.
that.
Gotcha.
But again, it is a process, and this is your complaint. So it's not a matter of you file the case. Okay, I'm gonna have my hospital. All right, y'all take care of it. No, 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 no. You have to be involved. You have to have some skin in the game. Skin
Yeah.
in the game as far as you have to do your part. Now
Mm.
you can't do everything because you don't know everything, but that's where our professionals are going to be able to do the work, to be able to help us. And a lot of times, complaints that are actually filed directly with HUD, because
Mm-hmm.
of our we cover the state of Florida, so HUD is going to send those cases to us, unless in those special circumstances that requires their expertise to be able to handle. Like for example, those appraisal cases that's going to be discussed at the Fair Housing Conference, because of the specific expertise. They will be the ones to handle those particular complaints. But that's the reason why these laws are important. So it allows us to be able to go in and do the work. And if nothing else, even if we don't find something in your favor, you can at least know that one, they did do right, even though you don't like the outcome. At least you know they did not do it because of who you are. And that's also going to make them think twice about trying to do that particular action with someone else, because that's time and energy. And as far as the housing provider, that is money that they got to respond to us, because somebody has to write their response. They have to take the time for the investigation. People are going to be digging into this particular thing, and so you don't want to deal with that. So if nothing else, it's going to be a preventive thing. I'm like, you know what? Let me make sure I have my stuff together. At
Mm.
the same time, we do recognize the fact that it's not always something about the housing provider. As the person filing the complaint, you have a responsibility. You can't break the law and then say, well, they broke the law too. That's what I term called muddying the waters. That may be the case, but you did not help yourself with that. And so
Mm.
we do have examples of that. You have individuals that are overly sensitive. Because I paid my rent late, I got charged. They shouldn't do. The only reason why they're doing it is because of who I am. No, it's in their policy. This is they're going to charge you. They're doing that to everybody. So there is both sides of that. So we are a neutral agency. We are not pro complaint. We are not pro respondent. We are pro law. What does the law say? But
Mm.
we do recognize the fact we're not going to be ignorant that there are nefarious characters that do take place. but we do our due diligence to make sure are your rights.
All right. All right. No, thank you for sharing that. All right. So I saw attorney Felicia Thomas on here. Thank you for joining us. All right. So no questions from the viewers. Any thoughts? Any I don't know, any burning issues maybe that you may have dealt with that you were it was maybe questionable with you in terms of whether or not it might have been a fair housing issue or not, or maybe a loved one that you have heard a story of what might potentially be a fair housing issue. Let us know in the comments. I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm curious. You know, fair housing, and in my other life, I worked in fair housing, not fair housing, in affordable housing. And now I'm back in that space. But I do recall many, many Aprils of trying to raise this issue of fair housing. And it's not necessarily the hot and sexy topic, right?
That's
But
sexy at all.
yes, but it is important because, again, I think, and it's becoming more important, especially in the times that we are living in with the cost of housing and also the affordability issues that come along with that. And so, people are chomping at the bit to find somewhere to stay. One of my predictions is that with housing going up as much as it is and incomes not going up at the same levels, we are probably going to see more homelessness, which not is not necessarily people on the street, although I do believe that that will happen, but it'll be people couch surfing, like staying on the couch of a friend or a loved one, a family member. I also think we'll see more multi-generational housing, which is not even necessarily, it could be related people. So three generations of, you know, grandmother, mother, child, or father or grandfather, whatever, grandparents, parents, and children. But I think we also are going to see more non-related people living together, renting rooms like student housing. Okay. So if you can imagine student housing, but for grown folks, okay, sharing a 3-4 bedroom home, because to pay for a room in a house at 5, 6, or $700 is way cheaper than paying 14, 16, 18, 2 grand a month on the whole place. So I predict that we are going to see more of that, and whew, I can't even imagine regulating all of that. But at any rate,
It's a challenge, because we are in a different time frame. With our parents, our grandparents, what they had to sacrifice, and as far as what they're always expecting more. But we're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with the economy, we're dealing with all those type of things. And when you have the Fair Housing Act,
supply
it's
and demand,
designed
Dante, supply and demand.
supply and demand. And with that said, we want to make sure that housing providers don't hide behind supply and demand to make it worse. So it's kind of like supply and demand, but it's actually discrimination. And
Mm,
so we want to catch those things. But again, even with that said, one of the things about the Fair Housing Act, particularly with the federal government, are trying to have these particular programs because it may take creative methods to be able to have affordable housing, which we were just talking about earlier.
mm,
So I may have to be involved in this particular program to get something produced to be able to afford that. So one of the things that we're trying to do is expand people's mind about how we can get affordable housing. It
yeah.
may not be the traditional way that as long as I have 2.5 times the amount because I just don't have the money to afford that. It may be I need to live in this particular area for a particular time. And it's also as a matter of a stepping stone. Sometimes, I'm looking for the pie in the sky. I'm looking for this particular thing. But if my money says I can afford this, then I do need to have a level of saying, hey, let me start right here
Hmm.
and to work my way up. Because again, to your point, not having a house at all, where you're keep going from couch to couch, or auntie's house to grandmama's house, or cousin's house. So there's nothing like having your own,
Yeah.
and to be able to take pride in that. And we got to start somewhere.
Mm.
And our agency is to remind, okay, despite the supply and demand is going to go up and down, up and down. I mean, things were going up, and then when COVID hit, so many things different, had changed. Housing went up, but other things went down. So we never know what the future holds. But what is consistent is the law. So regardless of what the economy does, we still have to make sure that we are the watchmen on the wall to saying, hey, despite, as long as it's, fair and equitable, you can keep going. But when something is not right, say, hey, 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 got to stop that. You got to do so. That's what our agency provides, and other agencies just like ourselves, just as HUD and other particular entities. We are that watchman in fair housing to say, look, this is the proper way to do your business.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. I see Brother Solomon has joined us. He said it's nothing like your own. He said amen now. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Um,
I have a question for your listening audience. I want to know, what does fair housing mean to you? Even if you own your own home, what does fair housing mean to you? Because one of the things when I talk with different persons across the state, everyone has a different mentality of fair housing. So I'd like for you to tell us, what is your idea of fair housing? Because Cole's definition of fair housing and my idea of fair housing may be different from you all as an audience. So if you just put in the chat, what is your definition of fair housing?
yes, let us know. I see Miss Audrey Lewis has joined us. She said great information and I will share. All right. Thank you, Miss Audrey. And Chef Shaq Africa Simmons said thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Thank you for being here, sister. Appreciate you. So let us know in the comments, what is your definition of fair housing? What do you believe fair housing is? What does it mean to you? And is it important to you? What
That's a good question.
what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you? It's kind of unfortunate that we have had to have these types of conversations. But I think as this country has progressed and certain things have come online and have made housing available because back in the day people gathered materials to build their own homes and raise money to build their own homes. It wasn't going to the bank per se, um and or it was renting from others. And so I think that again, as just times change, there have been a need for certain systems to be in place to make that more accessible to people. All right, so Shaq said affordable, safe, accessible to all, diverse. Okay, thank you for sharing that. All right, and Brother Solomon, in my honest opinion, my interpretation of fair housing is giving everyone, one, regardless of race, creed, color, status, or income, an even playing field to become a homeowner. Okay.
I
All
like
right.
that. I like
Thank you for sharing that, Solomon. Appreciate it. All right. Yeah. So I also wanted you to, if you don't mind, Dante, to speak to retaliation. So if it does the either the federal or the state fair housing provisions or policies provide provision for folks that have maybe filed a complaint that may be under fire for being a whistleblower or filing a complaint against someone with a discriminatory housing fair housing violation.
Absolutely. It is written specifically in the Fair Housing Statute to you're not allowed to intimidate and coerce, bully anyone that because they have a right to complain about what we call a protected activity. Um, what does that look like? So, for example, We talked about how someone that's in their housing. Let's say I'm complaining about my property manager is not doing a good job with the garbage. It's always overflowing, and I'm saying I'm going to call the code enforcement if you all do not do something about this garbage. It's coming in my area. It's infestation, things of that particular sort. And according to that tenant, they're not doing anything about it. So they're going to go and call code enforcement. Lo and behold, code enforcement comes in. They do their assessment. They assess a violation. Property manager is just enraged, and they know I know exactly who did this because they have been saying it all this time. They're going to call code enforcement, and so I'm going to get them. Well, that's a housing act as far in terms of being able to call and say, "Hey, I have a right to live in a clean place," right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a few months later, that tenant gets a letter of non-renewal saying we are going to not renew your lease.
Mm,
And as far as you have paid on time. You have actually been early. You haven't made any maintenance requests. You haven't been any problem. You've had no problem with it. Just all of a sudden, a non-renewal.
mm-hmm.
Oh, you're thinking, you know what? I think I'm being retaliated against because I made a complaint against code enforcement. So you have a right to complain about that. So anytime that you are doing a protection of that, uh, whether you're making a complaint. You could be complaining against my housing paperwork is not being processed properly, and
Mm,
so well, you know what? I'm going to evict you, or I'm going to raise your rent as a result of that, but nobody else's rent is being raised. Or why are they doing that? Well, because everything was fine until after I had that conversation. Everything was fine until I made that complaint. Everything was fine until this particular action takes place. And all of a sudden, getting the cold shoulder. All of a sudden, I'm getting, these little write-up violations. Everything was fine. All of a sudden, you're in violation of not this. You're in violation of this. One more violation, then you're going to be kicked out and you're going to lose your deposit.
mm.
So that's what retaliation looks like. And the law is very clear about not allowing that to take place.
Indeed. All right. Felicia, Attorney Thomas said, can people contemplating purchasing rental properties get information from fair housing to prevent running afoul of the law?
Well, yes. I mean, that's kind of the purpose of why such as my agency, I'm doing trainings all across the state as far as what the rights and responsibilities are. There's other organizations that get more into the actual business prospect aspect of it. Even the realtors, the Realtor Association, they have to take ethics courses to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that um, to, things are not, because if you're going to have a property manager for those rental properties, they have that access to that particular information as well. So they're also a very good resource to get that information as far as what they should and should not do. Also, keep in mind when we're talking about, and this is a good question, when we're talking about the Fair Housing Act, there are what we call exemptions.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you are a single family homeowner and let's say you want to rent your house out, you are not covered under the Fair Housing Act. So if you can just say, look, I don't want people that wear shoes in my house.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's discriminatory. I'm gonna file a complaint. Well, the Fair Housing Act does not cover places with single family homes. Also, the Fair Housing Act only covers housing providers that cover four or more properties. So
Mm,
if you own a rental unit, either your home, let's say you have an investment property, or you're very fortunate to have so, you will not be covered under the Fair Housing Act because you do not have four or more properties. Or let's say I own a duplex or a triplex and I live in one of those rooms. Well, because I am owner occupied and I live in one of those rooms and I'm renting out the other units, that's also exempt from the Fair Housing Act because you must have four or more. So that's an example as far as getting training, as far as, if you had the opportunity to be a part of any of the presentations that the state covers, such as myself, or any other things to learn that specific negative information because while it's good to know, there are certain things that you may be exempt for those particular things. So that's just an example.
okay. Thank you for that. She further asks, can requesting a high security deposit be considered discriminatory?
As long as you are applying that to everybody, You will skew how many people can do that. So again, that's where the argument about affordability comes into play,
Mm,
because how realistic is it for persons to be, if you're charging $1,500 a month and you're not asking, you're asking two times the rent and you're asking for a $2,000 deposit. How realistic is for individuals that's going to get that particular? So the argument is when you are targeting a certain particular individuals, well, you're actually making an assumption that other classes don't have that money as well. So no, it's not discriminatory so long as you are applying it equitably. If you're trying to do high security deposits for men and lower for women, absolutely it's discriminatory.
yes, thank you. And she further said, fair housing is supplying living spaces that are within a person's means while affording the owner of the space to make a reasonable profit. Hmm. Okay, so that's your definition of fair housing, Felicia. Just want to be clear. So let us know in the chat. Is that your definition of fair housing? All right. Brother Solomon, wasn't Donald Trump accused of this back in the day, or was it something different? I don't know about this. I don't know. I don't know, Dante. You can take that one if you want to, but I'm not sure.
I will say yes, but you need to go do some research. Yes, back in the day, in the early 70s and 80s, that was an accusation against Mr. Donald Trump. For more information, please Google that, and you'll get all the information that you will need on that.
Indeed. All right. So we are at our time. So Dante, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to give some closing remarks and tell how folks can connect with the Florida Commission on Human Relations, and then again we'll mention these events one more again before we get out of here.
Fair housing definitely is a right based upon your affordability. And agencies such as ourselves are the watchmen to be able to make sure that your rights are protected. Again, you don't know what you don't. So if you think that you're being discriminated against for any of those protected classes, go to our website at www.fchr.myflorida.com and file your complaint. And then an investigation will be done just to determine those particular things. Also, take advantage of the resources that are not just in Tallahassee or in the Big Bend area, but wherever you see this broadcast, every city, every county has similar resources. But you do have to put the effort to look into it. And I know a lot oftentimes I'm like, I'm so busy, I don't feel like doing that type of stuff. But when you need to have fair housing, you need to do what you need to do to make sure. As my dad would say, don't leave money on the table. If the money is out there for you, you need to go ahead and grab it. And these programs that these National Fair Housing Month programs are going to be offering, there are grants are going to be available, there are insight. There's so many different things to educate you, because even if you're not in the position to do it now, you have the resource, you have the information, you're armed, you're ready to go. So when you're ready to pull that trigger, you can be able to do so. And I think you might find that it might be more affordable what you think, but it will allow us to expand our mind as far as what I may want maybe to delay, but it may not be a denial. I may need to get this right here to have a stepping stone to reach that ultimate.
All right, very good. So you see the website for Florida Commission on Human Relations at the bottom of the screen. So definitely, if you have a question or need more information, reach out and you know get that question answered. And also, as we have stated, we will be at the Spring Home Expo, which is taking place Saturday, April 13th from 9 to 12 at the Leon County Cooperative Extension Office, which is located at 615 Paul Russell Road. Florida Commission will be there. Big Bend Habitat for Humanity will be there. And so there'll be workshops for current and future homeowners. There'll be do-it-yourself demonstrations, giveaways, that sort of thing. So leoncountyfl.gov/home expo is the registration site, although I'm sure they'll, allow people to just drop in without registering. But again, you can get information there. And then on Tuesday, what is that? April 23rd. April 23rd, Parkview at Cascades, which is Cascades Park, but upstairs in the huge meeting room. There will be a conference. The city of Tallahassee, I believe, will be putting out a link as it relates to that. So talgov.com and probably the housing department or fair housing department. And I forget what the exact, and y'all forgive me, what the exact link is, but or department is, but we'll, as soon as we get that information, we'll get it out to you. But we know that it'll be from what, 8:30 to 1. Dante,
Yes.
8:30 to 1 on the 23rd. It'll be free, open to the public. And there'll be a number of speakers and I think a few vendors set up. So another free event focused on fair housing. 2024's theme is the act in action. So it's all about putting this Fair Housing Act, which focuses
Motion.
on these protected classes in motion, in action. So you definitely want to learn more about that and get as much information as you possibly can. All right. Brother Solomon said, thanks, Dante. And Miss Teresa Nix, catering with care / Joe Ellens is on the live. We appreciate you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, I love that.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, good people. We are going to wrap this up. Thank you, Dante, for your knowledge, your expertise in making a not so fun topic interesting as best you can and putting a lot of energy and effort towards it. Really appreciate it. Let's keep this conversation going, y'all. Please share this. Please tag a friend that you think may need to listen to this and may need this information that we exchanged today. All right. We'll see y'all on Saturday or on the 23rd. Have a good one.
All
Bye.
right. Conversation going.